Alright, this is Mike with Trike with Mike, Texas. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Navy. I was on a submarine during the Cold War, nuclear-powered submarine. We were ported in San Diego back in the 80s. And every now and then, I'm going to tell you a sea story. And this is a sea story. So, the Navy doesn't mess around. I mean, if you screwed up, you pay the consequences. Usually went to captain's mast, and they weren't real friendly there. I had a new first class. This is not the one that I was talking about before. This was a new one. It replaced him when he left. And so he's, outranks me. I'm E5, he's E6. And we went out on a Westpac. Well, when you first get to a submarine, as a person that's never been on any submarine, you've got 12 months to qualify the boat, or you were delinquent. We call them dinks. Dink non-qual was what you were always called until you got qualified. And by qualifying, you've got to learn everything about everything on the ship. How each system operates, how to isolate it, whether it be a hydraulic valve somewhere or electrical panel, breaker. You had to know how to isolate it. If some part of that system's on fire, you know where to isolate it. If it's hydraulic or flooding, you know how to isolate that system. So, because, you might be the only one around at the time. You can't go call the machinist for one of his systems. You got to go find the guy. And, when you're deep underwater, you want to get everything isolated pretty quick. So we'll let this guy go by. And two guys go by. And both are Teslas. 3 cars go by, but we're gonna go on the second one here. There. So anyway, but when you have previously been on another submarine, it's my friend the dog's up here. But when you've previously been on other submarines, it's understood that you are qualified and that you know how the systems operate. And so since you already know how the systems operate, all you need to know at that point, there's my friend, all you need to know at that point is where everything isolates, because it doesn't matter if it's the same type ship, no system's the same. There's minor changes, valves move, valve numbers move. What might isolate a trim and drain system might be TD84 on one boat and TD16 on another. So you still have to know where and how to isolate everything. But since you already know the basics and you don't have to learn how everything operates, they give you 6 months to qualify. And then you don't have to go get signatures from everybody. Like the non-qual has to go to a, maybe an E5 or E6 and get a signature on stuff for, let's say, torpedoes. And basically they give them, put them through the paces. You ask them questions and they answer you. And if they're, maybe they got 2 or 3 things wrong, you tell them go find that out and come back. They do that, and you give them a signature on their card for that system. And then there will be a chief or somebody, maybe you'll give them more questions on those systems, or better yet, they'll look and say, well, this guy signed this guy signed that. I know the questions they ask. I don't have anything else. And they'll sign that off for that. And usually a chief signature might be several systems together. So torpedo systems, fire control, sonar, those might be grouped together. And then so by the time you get all those signatures for all those systems, you're talking probably 30 or so signatures, maybe. Then you go to a board. And the board, basically, it's like a test. It's a big test. You sit up there and they say, draw this system. So you draw this system and put the valve numbers in there. They say, where's that valve? And you say, it's over here, about this high, on this bulkhead, behind this other thing. And you tell them, and then, you pass or say, come again, or find out these couple answers that you got wrong, because you're not going to get them all right. It doesn't matter. They got questions that you're not going to know. But you do your best and you go on. But as a returning sailor from another ship, and you only have to get the chief signatures, and you don't have to go through the board. So the chiefs ask you the questions, and then they sign off on those sections. But you got 6 months, so it's shorter, but easier, theoretically. So my chief, who outranks us both, come down to me in the torpedo room, and we're out at sea, and asked me where his qual card was. I said, I don't know. I have no idea where his qual card is. And Chief's like, well, he's coming up on 6 months in a couple weeks. And so he went digging through our books and stuff there at the desk and found his qual card. Well, it only had one signature on it. And I said, well, that's probably one he couldn't find because you couldn't find it. He probably put it there, couldn't find it, so he got another one. He's doing that. And I said, I hope so. And so same thing. Every day he'd come down there. Where's his qual card? He started digging through and he'd get it. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. I said, well, it's getting close. He almost has to have had a different card. Did you ask him? He says, no, he knows the date. Well, lo and behold, one day, Chief comes down. Gets out the card. I'm expecting same thing. This is a replacement card, one signature. It was completely full. It was filled out, signed by, everybody that needed to be signed. And Chief's like, oh, thank goodness he's finished. And I said, well, then where's his old card? Because we thought this was, the replacement. Well, the one signature was still there, but all the rest of them were filled in. Most of the signatures for the rest of it were all signed by chiefs that had left the boat already in the past few months. So we're like, oh, that doesn't look good. And then the real kick in the pants is one of the senior chief, actually I think two of them that were still on the boat, had a couple signatures. And so my chief went up and he says, well, I'm going to find out. You know, so he took the card up to the senior chiefs, said, hey, this is my first class's Qual card. Did you sign this? I said, absolutely not. I've not even talked to him about anything. Well, very quickly, my E6 was an E5 that I now outranked instead of him outranking me. He was an E5. And the jump between E5 and E6 in the Navy is 3 years minimum. Okay, if you pass your tests and all that, it's 3 years. So he set him back 3 years by not doing a little bit of work for a few months. And since the Cobb was mad at him, and well, everybody's mad at him, Cobb put him in charge, because he's still an E5, put him in charge of deck division. Well, deck division's all the newest of new guys that, you know, none of them are qualified. And they're up topside chipping paint and painting the boat and all sorts of stuff and while we were in port. And you know, a lot of other things in port. They were Cobb's guys to do what he wanted with them. So anyway, they were topside, and I don't know any of this other than what I heard, that he might have mouthed off to the Cobb or an officer or somebody on topside, and somebody else overheard it that you wouldn't have wanted to overhear it, and he became an E4. And when I was leaving the Navy, we were in Guam, in port. He was topside leading his guys on. He still outranked them all because they're all E2, E3s. But, you know, and he's just an E4, which E4 to E5 is at minimum 1 year. So he's set back 4 years already. And I said, well, hey, I'm out of here. I was headed to the airport. You know, hope you're doing okay. And he just said, I'm working on E3. I'm working on E3. So the Navy won't mess around. It's a shame. He did it to himself. He did it to himself.